There is a procedure in the law that is designed to prevent irreparable harm. It's called the injunction, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Back when everyone who spoke English paid patronage to a king, there were two types of courts. The first type of courts were the courts at law, where people could go and sue for money damages, among other things. But the king, being the king, retained some degree of judicial authority, and he implemented that judicial authority through the courts of chancery. In other words, he delegated to his chancellor the right to decide certain kinds of cases. And these courts of chancery became the places that people went to when the results in a court of law would be too harsh for them. Now, when the United States broke away from dear old England, they took the body of common law, which included both that judge-made law and this chancellery-made law, and merged them into one complete doctrine of law, and that became the United States common law. And courts in the United States now can do both legal issues like torts, contracts, that sort of thing, and they can also do what's called equity. And equity is based generally on fairness. It's designed to give you a remedy when the law might not give you a remedy. Now let's unpack that a little bit. When someone drives over your foot in the parking lot, you can sue and get money damages. And although it certainly won't do much for the pain in your foot, it will, in some respects, make you whole by paying your doctor's bill and paying for you being off work for the period of time that your foot was recuperating. That is a legal remedy that you get through the courts. But what if someone is threatening to build a lead smelter right next door to your property, and you don't believe that this will be healthful for you? You can do what is called a petition for injunctive relief, or to ask for an injunction. An injunction is a court order to do something or to not do something, as the case may be. Now, you may remember back in 2017 when President Trump came into power, he did a travel ban. And almost immediately, a court out in Hawaii imposed an injunction against that travel ban. It said to the government, you can't enforce this rule. That injunction was eventually appealed and taken up, and again, it was overturned at the Supreme Court. But for quite some period of time, that ban could not be enforced, and that is the purpose of an injunction. Well, how do you get an injunction? Well, the first thing you have to show is that you're entitled to the injunction because otherwise you will suffer irreparable harm. Well, what is irreparable harm? It's harm that can't be cured by money damages. So, for example, if a constitutional right were going to be violated, if you were going to be excluded from the pool of registered voters for some reason, you could get an injunction to put you back into that pool of registered voters, because otherwise you'd be denied a right to vote in an election. Of course, if you're denied the right to vote in that election, you don't get to go back later and put your vote in. That vote wouldn't count. So that is irreparable harm. In addition to showing irreparable harm, you have to show two things with regard to the public interest. The first thing you have to show is that it's in the public interest to give you this relief. So in our voting analogy, it is clearly in our best interest to have every legitimate voter vote in an election. So it would be in the public interest. But you also have to show that it will not harm the public interest. Sometimes that's not easy to do because people can be very inventive about ways that they could be harmed by your injunction. But generally speaking, if you meet those tests and you make a showing by clear and convincing evidence, you can get an injunction in both federal and state courts. Injunctions are useful because they stop people from doing things that violate rights or impose harm that can't be repaired by money damages. Of course, getting the injunction is only half the battle. You then have to keep the injunction. And that means you have to defend that injunction on appeal. And that can be appealed in the state court system. It can be appealed to the intermediate appellate court and the state Supreme Court. And in the federal system, it can be appealed to the Intermediate Circuit Court of Appeals and then to the United States Supreme Court. And again, those appeals are sometimes very costly matters and sometimes difficult to win, because sometimes it's easier to convince one judge than 9 judges that you're right. Well, that's the story about injunctions. I hope you found this helpful. And if you would, I'd appreciate it if you'd mash that like button and click on the subscribe icon and subscribe to my channel, and then press the notification bell so you'd be notified whenever I post a video that may be of interest to you. Thank you for watching and have a terrific day.